Welcome back to the Center Right, everybody. I'm Wes Trueblood. Today we're going to be talking about parallel cultures and Balkanization. Parallel cultures are cultures that rise up next to each other but never actually cross over. Cultures where you have one set living over here and one set living over here, and they each kind of trade and interact with each other, but they don't become one people and have one culture. The term for this that is generally used is called Balkanization. Balkanization is based on an area of Europe that splintered over time and time and time again from the kingdoms that united them into ever smaller and smaller and smaller people groups based upon their desire to have their own culture apart from the other groups. These parallel cultures became fracture lines and fault lines within which these larger nation states fell apart because the two groups simply could not coexist within that nation state because of how they had grown so distinct and distant from one another, as opposed to being one people and one culture. So to start, we're going to begin by looking at a map of this Balkan area. So what you're going to notice right here is that you have the Czech Republic and Slovakia, formerly Czechoslovakia. You have Austria and Hungary, formerly Austria-Hungary. You have Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, and Kosovo, which used to be under the Ottoman Empire, and they came out as a different group and eventually all balkanized into different areas because of these parallel culture lines. They could not, once the Ottoman Empire was out of the way, there was no unifying culture that held them together, and therefore, right along those same culture lines, these states fractured into smaller states and smaller people groups because there was nothing that was able to hold them together. Now that's going to lead us into the brilliance of the American founders and their idea of a melting pot, but give me time, we'll get there. So Bosnia-Herzegovina has 10 cantons. Those are almost what we might consider states in America, except for one slight problem. You see, those states are not just states within a greater whole. Those states are kind of semi-autonomous, independent groups, different cultures, different peoples. They're not held by an overarching system, an overarching culture, an overarching reality that keeps them all as one united people group. They're all independent, and if they all broke up into independent states, they would each function on their own because they already almost do. Now, what does that look like? Well, here you can see the different areas that they have. The Republic Spurska, the Republic also Spurska, differently. These two areas, this is where you have the international area, and it's Sarajevo, where you had the ethnic cleansing going on. And that really is what I want to key on here. These parallel cultures not only led to all the breakups of these countries in the Balkan area, they actually led to ethnic cleansing, as different groups said, no, my culture is superior, no, my culture is superior, and eventually we need more room for our culture, no, we need more room for our culture, and that led them into conflict because suddenly those are our ancestral lands, no, these are our ancestral lands. And the ensuing fight in the 1992 to 1995 area killed thousands and thousands of people because of parallel cultures that were allowed to spring up and run parallel to each other without actually melting together into one solid, unanimous country culture. The Encyclopedia Britannica tells us of this war that it was from 92 to 95. It killed thousands and violently displaced more than 2 million people in much of Bosnia and Herzegovina. What does this have to do with us as Americans? That's a great question. Because you see, today in America, we have our own version of Balkanization going on. We have different cultures that are springing up, and instead of melting into the general American culture, which is what should be happening according to our founding fathers and the identity of who we are as a country, we have people coming in and setting up little areas that are their culture from where they come from. Now, everybody's going to look immediately to the Hispanic community, but I'm going to tell you that there's a much better example of what we're talking about than the Hispanic community, and specifically that's the Somali community up in Minnesota. They've really kind of turned certain cities in Minnesota into little Somalia. They don't work with the Americans around them. They don't learn English. They don't come to our schools. They don't participate in our life and in our culture. They stay purposely separate. They want these cities to be separate, and they try to set up a completely different culture in these cities that is unique and distinct from America within America. This is the core of what Balkanization is. It's not like somebody who comes from Mexico, sets up a restaurant, sends their kids to American schools, learns English. Maybe they don't end up speaking it all that great, but they at least try, and they try to participate in American society. They participate in the 4th of July. They participate in all the things that are quintessentially American. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about people who come up and then try to set up a little area, like a little Venezuela or a little Cuba or a little this or a little that, and then don't have that community interact with America. They don't celebrate American holidays. They don't participate in American culture. They don't do all of the things that we do that make us American. They try to stay unique and completely whole and unto themselves. This is where the problem comes in, because these cultures, these parallel cultures, become fracture lines. And when things go bad, instead of everybody coming together as one people group and saying, we're all Americans, let's pull together, we start to blame each other because that's not my culture, those aren't my people, these aren't this aren't that. The entire idea of e pluribus unum, out of many one, was that out of all of us, we're all going to be one people, one culture group. And unfortunately, many people have lost sight of that, and it's causing issues, divisions, and ripples throughout our entire country nowadays. And it's really a problem that we have to begin to deal with. You see, the original idea was that you were going to bring your cultural heritage and everything that made you you to America and participate as part of what we've got going on. But how can you do that? And I don't mean to be somewhat glib with this, but how can you do that if you're trying to separate yourself and stay apart from America? That was never the idea. The idea was you were supposed to come in, become American, and add your uniqueness to it, not refuse to participate in it, stay separate from it, and kind of cast it out like, I don't want to be a part of that. And yet, that is what we're seeing more and more and more, and it's why we're coming up with these cultural divides. It's really not along racial lines, because there are black people who participate in American society, and there are black people who participate solely in the subculture of Black America. There are Hispanics who participate fully in the American culture, and there are Hispanics who participate in the Hispanic subculture. There are Asians who come in who participate well within the American culture, and there are Asians who stay within the predominantly Asian subculture. It's not about whether or not you're black or white or Asian or Hispanic. It's about, what do you culturally embrace? Do you culturally embrace America, or do you culturally embrace wherever it is you come from? For example, my wife's family is from Germany. The 3 generations back, they came over from Germany. Now, they still make sauerbraten, they make red cabbage, they make all the different German foods, the sauerkraut, all the different wursts that you can have. And you know what? They're delicious. But in the end, if you asked any of them, they'd say they're Americans. They don't speak German anymore. They are American by culture. They are American by how they live. They are American by what they do. And so you would be hard pressed to call them Germans today, because really what they become is Americans. Conversely, I have many friends who are Hispanic, who you look at and you go, yeah, we know you're Hispanic because you generally look Hispanic, but you're American. You speak English. You don't even speak Spanish. You don't participate in any of that. You're as American as apple pie. That's what we're talking about. They bring their unique heritage here, but in the end, they're American. It's the parallel culture that is the problem, not the people coming in to be American. I don't care if you're Hispanic. I don't care if you're Somali. I don't care if you're Asian. I don't care if you're any of these other nationalities that are around. It really doesn't matter. The question is, are you coming here to be American and participate in American culture? I can't answer that for you. Only you can answer that, and only your community can answer that. So here's the question for you. Why are these parallel cultures becoming such a thing in America? I think the answer to that is people no longer feel like they should have to become American. And that's where much of this political divide is cutting us apart today. Is you have those who look at the melting pot and say the end goal of anybody coming to America should be to become American. And then you have those that say, no, it is wrong to ask them to give up their culture to become American. But historically, it's e pluribus unum, out of many, one, as opposed to e pluribus plurib, out of many, many. You don't. That doesn't work. You don't get many out of many, or you just have many. So again, it's designed to be a homogenized culture that adds to it the distinctiveness of those who come in, not a culture where this group is over here, that group is over here, this group is over here. And the longer and deeper we allow that to run here in America, the more we run the risk of becoming fractured. In fact, we're seeing it in much of our society today, these fractures along these cultural lines. So again, as you are going through your day, as you are going through things, remember, the idea is for people to become part of the American culture. We should be welcoming. We should be open. We should be loving and pulling people into that American culture, not pushing them out. If they are trying, if they are making a good faith effort to participate and be a part of American culture, we should be willing to work with them. They speak some broken English. Hey, you know what? Applaud them for trying. Thank them for wanting to be a part of your culture. Draw them in and make them a part of who we are. They want to go out to a Mexican restaurant or a Vietnamese restaurant or even a Somali restaurant. You know what? Go try it. We're not talking, their food can become a part of who we are as Americans. Tacos at this point are as American as it gets. I mean, I go out for tacos just about every single day, and there's 4 taco places just within 30 seconds from my house if I go this way or that way. So again, it's not that they can't become a part of who America is. I think Hispanic culture has really become a part of the fabric of America. It's when we set up a culture in an area where we only speak Spanish, we only keep our money within our community, and we don't interact with other communities, and we educate our children within our community and our culture, and we don't allow them to become a part of the broader whole. This is where we reach the point of Balkanization, and this is where it becomes a problem. So again, don't castigate people just because they have a different background, where it becomes, as long as they're attempting to participate in American society, we should be encouraging them, welcoming them, and letting them. The problem is when people start setting up these Balkanized areas in your community. That we do need to speak out against, and that we do need to warn people about, because that kind of a fracture line in society is what leads to the nation states falling apart. And obviously, we don't want that for America. So, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was informative. I hope it helped you to kind of contextualize this argument. Even the argument about the Bad Bunny Super Bowl falls into this category of a parallel culture as opposed to a melting pot culture. We are a melting pot, not a balkanization. We're a melting pot, not a tossed salad. And if you think about that tossed salad metaphor, here you have a leaf of lettuce, there you have a tomato, here's an olive, there's a this, there's a that. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a melting pot where everything gets thrown into the stew and it becomes one culture, that American culture. We will welcome your culture in as part of us and part of our subset, but the expectation is that you're going to take on our flavor too, and you're going to become American. And that's how this should work. So let's calm down with all the division, and remember, just because Bad Bunny did a halftime show, not all Hispanics are bad. And just because Americans were offended that their culture was pushed aside for another culture, it doesn't make them bad. The reality is the melting pot was violated by that Super Bowl halftime show. And that's a problem. However, it doesn't mean that we should reject all Hispanics, all this, all that, because they're rejecting America. No, it was a bad decision by the NFL, and that's okay. That happens. Had the show been predominantly in English and you had Hispanic artists with 1 or 2 Spanish songs in the set, but they were talking to people within the concert in English and bringing that Hispanic flavor into who America is, that would have been fine. But that isn't what happened. And so I'm just asking both sides not to get as wrapped up around the axle as they are. I think the point's been made. I don't think we need to keep beating this horse. But at the same time, I reach out to those who are living in these parallel communities, and I just say, this is not what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be part of us, and we want you to be part of us. We need you to break out of that cultural separation. Come across the fence, join with us, and be a part of who we are. That's how we win, guys. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. One people, one culture, one nation, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter at all. Come here, be American, bring your individual flavor to America, and we will all get along and be brothers and sisters under the red, white, and blue. Thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate you. By the way, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this out to people. I'm new at this. We're just learning and kind of trying to get better at the craft little bit by little bit. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep trying. I want you to join me along for the ride as we continue to build here. And one of these days, I hope that this will be a great channel that you enjoy. I will continue to try to get better. I will continue to try to learn. If you have suggestions, put them down in the comments. I want to hear them so that we can make this better. Thanks for your time, guys. Love you all very much. We'll see you next time.